Welcome to Teaching Artist Podcast, a show dedicated to discussions of teaching art to kids, making art, and how those things overlap and feed each other. I'm Rebecca Potts, your host, a visual arts teaching artist. Speaking with Liz Brent was so refreshing. Her passion for art and for her students came through so strongly. I loved hearing how she balances it all and how she has adjusted during this time of social distancing. Liz also had such great messages of encouragement to share. Liz Brent is an art teacher, artist, and owner of Brent Art, where she and her family create custom art for people all over the country. She has taught hundreds of students how to paint, from K to adult, beginners to advanced. She recently opened her online painting membership, The Painter's Retreat, to combine her experience as an artist and art teacher to share her love for painting with others. She earned her BFA in art education and master's in special education, and is currently a high school special education teacher and case manager. With her experience working with diverse learners, she makes sure to break down painting into a simple step-by-step process. From art camps and nursing homes to high schools and community centers, she's pretty much taught everywhere. Liz says, "My goal is to make art accessible for all, one lesson at a time." All right. Hello. So I am here with Liz Brent. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I'm excited to hear more about your teaching and your art making. Yeah. And I like to start with just a little bit of background. Could you kind of tell us your story? Like, how did you start teaching? How did you start making art?
Okay, nice. So thank you first so much for having me. I am very excited.
Yeah.
I would say my background with art started in college. So actually, no, it started in high school. I got into art just because I signed up for an art and biology class my freshman year because I heard it was easy. And that started it. Even though my dad and my brother were artists and like they created art all while I was young, I never really paid much attention to it. And so I went and took the 4 art classes throughout my high school career and then ended up in AP and then decided, okay, I'll apply for art in college, even though I was set to be pre-law. Like since I was 9, I said I was going to be a lawyer.
Wow.
And, I was planning to go to law school and I was studying for the LSATs. But then I was also taking teaching classes. And then it got to a point where I had to decide between student teaching and LSATs. And I knew I couldn't do both. Like I wasn't studying enough. And then I also wasn't preparing enough for student teaching. So that's when I finally decided like, okay, I think teaching is what I want to do. It would be, something more interesting for me as far as art education. So I decided to go that route. And that's how I started teaching.
Wow. Yeah, that's such a shift too.
Yeah.
How did your family respond to that?
They were very supportive because, I was always the kind of kid who like did well in school and had good grades and was like never in trouble. And so I think they kind of just let me create my own path. So first I said lawyer. They were like, okay, great, lawyer. And then I was like, okay, I'm thinking maybe art. And because at first I was like, I'll just be an artist. And they're like, well, maybe you can do something to make it, solid. How about teaching it? And I'm like, okay, maybe.
Yeah.
And then they were like, okay, cool. And so they just kind of pushed me along and were just like, whatever you want to do, we support you.
Awesome. That's great. Because that doesn't always happen.
I know. Oh my goodness. I was definitely blessed with a good supportive family.
Yeah. That's great. And do you feel like now your teaching and your art making really kind of go hand in hand? Like, do they overlap and kind of go together, or are they sort of separate spheres that you work within?
Yeah, it's kind of both now. And it's funny because I actually started teaching. I was 2 years into teaching high school art and then ended up going to school to get my master's in special education just because I wanted more knowledge of how to work with those students in my art classroom. But then after that, the next full-time job I was offered was within special education. So then I shifted over. So now I'm actually a special education teacher and case manager. And I sometimes teach art within that school, because with special education, it's whatever we're kind of assigned at the moment.
Right.
And so before the switch, it was like, okay, I'm an art teacher. I can show the techniques I'm using in my art practice. And then if I have like a commission project, I'm doing it in my art class with my students.
Mm-hmm.
And then it switched to being, this is what I need to keep me going and to like relieve my stress and like to give me my art. So then I really pushed myself with outside art making and outside art teaching to really have that as a part of my day.
Yeah. So right now you're a full-time special ed teacher?
Yep.
Wow. I didn't even realize that. That's kind of amazing.
It's crazy. I do so many different things.
Yeah, because in addition to that, you're teaching like private workshops.
Mm-hmm.
You were teaching, are you still teaching at a local art center?
Yep, I'm actually teaching online.
Okay, so they have shifted online?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of, because I think I was at one time at 3 different art locations. I was teaching at an Evanston Art Center and then Art Makers Outpost in Evanston. And then I want to say there's one more. I had just got signed on with the Oak Park Art League. And so I was like shifting between all of these, but also teaching full time. And now I'm still doing the teaching online through the school and also with the art center.
Wow. Yeah, it's a lot.
It is a lot.
How do you manage all of that? How do you kind of fit it all in?
People always ask because I'm always so busy. And before I would always say like, I just don't have much of a, I don't have a heavy social life because of it. But,
right.
I do what I can because, art is just my passion and dream and I love to share it with people. So it's like it got to a point where if I wasn't creating it in my day, I just felt like something was just missing. And like I love the students I support and I love what I do, with case management. But it's like, I didn't realize that art became such a part of me that I like needed to do it and needed to have it. And so now I think I just balance it by like planning out every part of my day to where I have, between 8 and 4, I'm being the special education teacher. And then after that, I have things set aside. The weekends I'm teaching online through the art center, but then also through the week, I'm hosting my own virtual paint parties through my business. And I'm also creating custom portraits, which I have one that's due next week. And so I just like plan out every piece of my day. But anytime that I'm making art, time just flies and it never feels like work.
Yeah, I feel the same way sometimes. I just get totally lost in making.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a really good feeling. My brother calls it traveling because he's also an artist. He says that when he creates, he feels like he's traveling to wherever it is that he wants to be.
Oh, I love that idea. Like traveling through art.
Yeah.
And I know you said you try to kind of squeeze in some art with your special ed kids whenever you can.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Is it closer to almost like art therapy? I know that's not you're not trained as an art therapist, but.
Yeah, I had a couple good experiences. So what was it? Last year, I was actually teaching geometry as a special education teacher. And so we were able to do some like geometric drawing projects.
Ooh.
And then I was also assigned to a ceramics class. So within that, it was just all clay. And then I decided to be the ceramics club support person to actually help students with disabilities. So that's how I was able to actually incorporate that together. And then with one class that I was co-teaching, it was music. So I was able to do a lot of like creative projects within music. And we did one session of like listening to music and responding to it with painting.
Ooh.
And we talked about like intuitive art. So it was very therapeutic, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear a lot, and I've experienced too, that students sometimes who I would have no idea that they're, like labeled as special needs or any of that come into the art room and they're just incredible.
Yes.
And like classroom teachers have pulled me aside and been like, wow, I've never seen this kid do this,
Yep. I've seen that.
So it just has that ability. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Like, it's just amazing. Once you see what people are gifted at, like I had 2 specific students who, during the day they weren't interested in most other things. And then even one student who was nonverbal, but then got into ceramics and was just making just lots of things, like making different
Ah,
clothes and using different glazes and experimenting. And like, I never would have guessed that this student would just be so engaged in this. And like, it was incredible.
yeah, that's amazing. And it's a place for them to flourish where maybe other places they might not feel so successful.
Exactly. And it was also in like an inclusive setting too. So it was
Hmm.
students with and without disabilities, and they were able to support each other.
Yeah, and then that's another aspect that like the other kids see, oh wow, that
Hmm.
that person's really talented in this part of
Yep.
they're like an artist.
Yep. Exactly. Definitely.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Yes. Would you have any sort of tips for a new teacher, someone who's kind of new to teaching?
I would say always be ready to learn more. I
Mm-hmm.
think that my first year teaching was, going into teaching art, and coming out of college, I was assuming I was just ready and I knew everything. And, I was wondering, like, with student teaching, why I wasn't getting paid. And I'm like, I know what to do. And then as soon as I got into a school, it was just like I had no idea. And it wasn't so much the art making. Like, yeah, I had studied different lessons and I had all these things planned, but you have to be ready to learn more when it comes to students as people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, the classroom management and like learning how to maneuver different, not only different abilities, but different personalities and like the way
Mm-hmm.
students are going to receive you. And you have to be flexible and ready to adapt. So you may have all these different lessons that you think are cool, but if they don't really connect to what the kids, have an understanding
Mm-hmm.
of or like have an interest in, it won't mean anything. So you have to just be ready to keep learning.
Absolutely. And be flexible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. I learned that really quick.
Oh, and do you feel like that is also important in the other settings where you teach?
Yeah, definitely. Because especially with the art centers, it's very different because within a school, you have a
Mm-hmm.
curriculum, you may have like a team of other teachers that you plan with. But in the art center, it's nice because you do get full autonomy of what you teach and the way you teach. But because it's people coming in, there's paid classes, you kind of have to differentiate. And like, yes, you do that in a school, but for this, it's like people may come in with all different abilities and say, like, okay, I see that you said this is a beginner class, but I'm more advanced. How can you help me?
Mm-hmm.
And so one class I'm actually teaching now, it's like 4 adults, all different ages, all different experiences. And I might have a plan at the beginning, but then once I speak to them and see what they already know how to do, where they want to go, what they want to learn, I actually have to tailor my teaching to each individual student. So it becomes more of a specialized experience. So that being flexible is really important once you start to expand to like community settings or art schools, because every place is kind of different with how the people who attend, want to be engaged through the arts.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know if it might be hard to point to a specific method that you kind of have figured out for doing that when you have several people in a room together or, online together. How do
Yeah.
you
Right.
really like teach to each individual?
Yeah, I think so. One way I tried this time, because the first time I did it, it was like figuring out as I was going and just asking questions in the moment. But this time, once I received my roster, I actually sent out a questionnaire that
Mm.
had questions that said, like, how would you define yourself? Do you think you're beginner? Do you think you're intermediate or advanced? What do you want to learn? And why did you sign up? What motivates you? And, people responded, they answered these questions. They sent me like samples of their work, which then sparked like, okay, next time I know to ask everybody for samples.
Mm-hmm.
And, some people even sent links to different artists and books that they liked. And it showed me like, okay, this is the style that they're going for. This is the level they're at. And it really helps to be able to either say like, okay, I can get you there. I can give you the tools you need. Or sometimes it may be like, okay, this isn't the class for them. Like maybe they are looking for something
Mm-hmm.
different, something less structured or something more free. So it gives me the ability to say right up front, whether or not it's a good placement. And so usually it is, and usually it just turns into, here's what I can offer you to get you to these different
Mm-hmm.
steps. And I think that's been really helpful so far.
Yeah, that's great. I love that idea of the questionnaire and, really getting a lot of information before you even start teaching.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes me kind of wish I could do that with my 1,400 students.
Right? Wow. Oh my goodness. What ages do you teach?
Oh, I'm TK through 5th grade.
Wow.
So, yeah.
1,400 students, that's a lot. Okay.
It's a lot. Yeah, I'm at 2 different schools. So,
man. Yep, get you some questionnaires.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, just remembering names is hard enough.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, I'm so visual that I remember their faces more than names. So I'll be like, oh, yeah, I know you. You made this artwork last year.
Exactly. I remember people by artwork too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Could you maybe describe your artwork and kind of what I know I read on your website, and I loved this. I wrote down that you're ready to teach every medium. So you kind of like your work kind of spans many media.
Yeah, that's true. Oh my goodness. See, I would say it's been over the years, it's been evolving. And I think that I've just been trying out different things. And I've done acrylic painting, I've done oil painting, I've done graphite and charcoal drawings. And I would say, before it's more so let me see if I can figure these things out and, get good at them. Because at one point I had an idea that I would be a jack of all trades. But then, the more I got into my art practice, I started to see what do I enjoy most? What do I want to spend my time doing? And then it was acrylic painting, because I love the quickness of it and how, I guess I would say, forgiving it is. And so for a while, I still didn't know, okay, what do I want to create? Do I want to do portraits? And I was doing wall plaques and decorations for a while. And then somehow I just fell into landscapes and flowers. And it just felt like the most comfortable, simple, relaxing thing to paint. And even when I do really detailed ones and stuff, it never feels complicated, because sometimes I've painted projects, a lot of my work has been commissioned, which is also why I think it's been all over the place. And I did a lot of different things for different people. But finally, the thing that felt the most simple and easy to me was flowers and landscapes. And I was that's what I want. I want to be able to just sit and relax when I'm creating art. I don't want to have to think sometimes.
Yeah.
So you may see a lot of that recently on my page.
Nice. That's, totally after my own heart. I love landscapes, and I feel yes, landscapes and flowers are very forgiving. You're right that even when they get really detailed, it's there's not one specific way that it has to look.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love that so much.
Yeah, that you can loosen up a little bit and relax, use it as a de-stressor.
Right. Just turn your brain off for a minute.
Yeah. And I know you do a lot of commissions. Do you also try to sell the more personal work that you do? Are you is that part of your kind of business?
That's a good question. I haven't yet.
Or would you want to?
Right. I think I would, because I end up making so much stuff, because at first I was really attached to my work, and I had a hard time attempting to sell things. And then people would start asking, and I was okay, I'll make prints, but I wasn't selling originals. But now, especially with the quarantine, I've been painting so much. I have lots of paintings just laying around. And I'm okay, because some people have asked me about them. I'm I might actually put them up for sale, because I don't even hang them sometimes. In my studio I would, but I haven't been there because, it's not in my home and because of shelter in place. And so my walls are pretty much bare, and I just have stacks and stacks of them. So I don't think I would mind that. I think that it's kind of turned into a therapeutic process to create it, but not necessarily to keep it.
Right.
So it would be something cool to share it with somebody else. It's a memory.
Yeah. And let it be a therapeutic thing for them to have to beautify their home.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Yeah. And you mentioned your studio's not at home. So what does your sort of makeshift studio look like?
Oh my goodness. So it is a corner of my living room. And I was just like, where can I go with the best light and have like a cute little spot? So it's like near the windows with my cute curtains hanging behind me.
Yeah.
And I've just set up like my easel and I've got like little plants and stuff. But I think
Oh,
this spot came maybe with my first paint party. I was just like, I need somewhere cute to be.
right.
And so to have a good background, it started here. And then after that, this is where I sit to do all my painting.
Huh. Yeah, that's a whole other a whole other consideration, having to be in a space that not only works and functions as an art making space, but also looks good on camera.
Right.
Uh,
Right. That was something tricky because before it was like, okay, I can
mhm.
kind of create anywhere. I'm not being seen. But now it's like something else to like really think about.
Yeah. And is your usual, like your regular studio really close to home?
No, it's not, which is probably part of why I haven't been. It's about 40 minutes from me.
Yeah.
I used to live really close. I was about 5 minutes away and it was perfect. And I ended up moving. So that's why I'm so far now. But it's actually a shared space with maybe like 100 other artists.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's really cool during, non-quarantine, but it's
Yeah.
usually pretty empty anyway. But it's nice because it's like a home for artists. But now, since the
Mm,
shelter in place, I'm like, okay, I can't go to such a public area.
right.
So yeah, just figuring out the best spots in my house to do it.
Yeah. And does that studio space, do you feel like that gave you sort of an art community?
Yeah.
Do you do like critiques with any of those other artists, or, any other kind of community activities?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's actually what
Yeah.
got me started there. 'Cause I
Oh.
used to create like in my living room, like of my old tiny apartment, and I would have like such artist block, and I wasn't motivated most nights because I just didn't have a space, and then I didn't have like people to kind of push me, which of course my family and fiance did, but it was just
Hmm.
different. And so I looked for this space and I saw that, yeah, there were artists who worked in the common area, but then people had their own studios and there was like sinks and they had events. And like you said, art critiques. They also had art
Mm.
shows and you could sell your work from your studio. And like sometimes people would just like pop into each other's studio. So it was really a nice community.
Yeah, that's great.
And like, it really helped me to be motivated, like especially after a long day of work.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the biggest challenges for those of us that are, teaching all day and kind of
Mhm.
using up a lot of energy,
Exactly.
and then trying to keep making art.
I knew I needed a place where people could kind of hold me accountable, even though, they may
Hmm.
not say something like, oh, why aren't you creating? But just seeing them working, it made me also work.
Right. It's an inspiration.
Yep, that's what it is.
Yeah. And have you kept in touch during quarantine at all?
Yeah, with a couple people, mainly through like Instagram, sending like motivational posts or like sharing what we're doing. And it's this really nice network called Evanston Made. And it's like
Hmm.
a kind of like a social group of artists that I joined. And I'm glad I did because now during this time, they're doing like, visual interviews and like showing what everybody's doing. And like they share hashtags. So then we can all kind of see what everybody's doing.
Mm,
And so thanks to social media, I have been able to keep up with a lot of people.
that's awesome. Yeah, I have a much tinier little critique group of like 8 to 10 people, and
Okay.
we've managed to do one Zoom meeting. We have another one scheduled, but we're trying to
Okay.
kind of keep that going. So that's another idea with
Yeah,
probably a smaller group.
that's true. I like that. Zoom would be really cool.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask, I know you have your like paint party sort of membership,
Hmm.
and you've set that up through Patreon.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little more about that?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that's something I'm very curious about, and maybe listeners will be as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with the paint parties, how did that even happen? So, I want to say January 2019, I started just doing my own public paint party. So, I would go to bars,
Hmm.
restaurants, and book spaces for it. And then I traveled to people's homes. And then I had a few on my calendar for like March and April. And then all of a sudden, COVID-19 happened.
Hmm.
And I believe I saw like another artist on Facebook talking about like, we have to go virtual, like things are changing. And I'm like, yeah, what am I going to do to keep this part of my business going? And
Right.
then I decided to try like Facebook Live paint parties. And like I had a huge turnout. I think the first one was like 40 people or something.
Wow.
And took that to turn it into, okay, let's try another one with a different painting. And then I was like, but I want this to be more of a community and not just like, not just through Facebook, but like something more
Mm-hmm.
personal. So then I had already had a Patreon set up. I just never really, paid much attention to it or really promoted it. And so I decided to use my Patreon for a membership. I'm like, what if it could be something where people can pay a monthly fee and join in with me to paint a couple times a month? And, they would have direct access to get like tips on their paintings and
Mm-hmm.
share work. And we can have like a little group. And so I was getting a good response to that. And then with the lockdown extending, I was like, you know what? Let's just do it every week.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this will make me be more social too. Like I'll sit and like interact with people online and just do what I love to do and share painting. And like just so many people had great responses and talked about how they were kind of feeling lonely and how this really helped them. And so right now I have it set up where people can join on patreon.com/slash Liz Brent, and they can pay $15 a month to paint with me every week live. And it's a lot of fun. I have it through Crowdcast where people can like chat during the paint party, but also they can ask to be on screen, or I can invite them on screen and they can like talk and share their work. And, every week the members get to paint on the next one and, bring their friends in. And then that even expanded to members booking me for their own private paint parties through Zoom.
Oh,
So I
cool.
actually did one this weekend. Yeah, and it was like 15 people, 3 different states celebrating this one person's birthday.
Oh,
And the girl who booked it, like she's a member of mine. So I was like, hey, whenever you book a party with me, you pay for free. So she can book as many as she wants with different groups. And like she gets to paint free for all of those.
oh, cool.
So yeah, I want it to be something like special. So it's not just like,
Mm-hmm.
just come paint with me, give me money. It's more like, no, this is a community. I appreciate your support and I want to support
Mm-hmm.
you at the same time.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that sounds like it's really working for you.
It is. It's so much fun. And I get to like play new music every time and we kind of dance together too. So it's a lot of
Oh,
fun.
nice.
Yeah.
And do you see yourself, like, would you want to eventually stop teaching in schools, or would you always want to kind of keep both things going?
I do think that one day it is my dream to become a full-time artist and,
Mm-hmm.
art teacher, entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to necessarily stop teaching altogether, but I do think that I'm leaning more towards like teaching my own classes at like community
Mm-hmm.
centers and hosting community programs to like really spread art. Because I feel like my mission, I always say it, is to make art accessible for all, one lesson at a time. So I kind of want to just keep like expanding and see where it takes me to work with like kids and adults. And so that's my dream, to one day, work full time as an artist and also to own my own studio, like a community art studio.
Awesome. And then if you ended up going that route, would you be hiring other artists to teach?
That's a good question. I think first it would just be probably me and
Mm-hmm.
my brother and maybe my dad, because they're both artists too.
Yeah, the family business.
It is. It's a family business. I've had nieces who paint and
Uh,
everything. So yeah, I think it would start as like a family business.
yeah. And do they work in like similar styles to you, or are they totally different?
I would say different, actually. My brother Larry, he works in graphite drawing, but his is like much more detailed than me.
Mm-hmm.
And then my dad is mostly, well, he draws, but he paints like wearable art. So like he paints on clothes and it'll be like images that look like patches or embroidery, but it's like super detailed painting.
Wow.
So yeah, it's like we're all different. We all focus on like representational realism, but
Mm-hmm.
just like in different ways. So with that, we all like work under the name Brent Art to create custom commission artwork.
Oh, cool.
So it's been a lot of fun with that. So we've been doing so many things, I often forget to include it all.
So much going on.
Yeah.
Right now, with all of the, everything being kind of online, what does a week sort of look like for you?
Oh my goodness, it is intense.
Yeah.
So just, what is today, Monday? Oh my goodness.
Or maybe is it easier to say like what one day looks like?
Yeah, one day is, so yeah, with things online and at the high school level, it's not like virtual teaching all day. It's mostly, posting assignments or like recording myself and doing some things like that. So during the week, I try to dedicate my 8 to 4 to teaching and like my case management and everything to do with my full-time job. And then after that, it's, social media where I'm doing marketing or engaging or, planning posts, or I'm following up with emails or Facebook messages because people are like setting up parties, or I'm getting emails about commission work, or I'm checking my Etsy shop, or I'm like forwarding something to my brother because somebody wants him to do a commission drawing. So it's like, I'm running so many different things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, 8 to 4. I just had to make that a thing where that's strictly full-time job business. And then after that, it's like a whole variety of things to do with the business.
Yeah. And then do you kind of block out the time that you're just going to be painting for yourself?
Yeah.
Or is that just like squeezed in wherever it can fit?
Yeah, I would say this past week was kind of squeezed in.
Yeah.
But I did have to block out time. So like I made it so that private parties are only, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then, through the week is specifically, 8 to 4 is the work. But then at least once a week at 6 p.m. So I have my paint party day, but then I also try to set aside me time where I'll say, okay, I won't look at my phone. I won't do any work. I'll just do whatever I feel like. So it may be painting, it may be watching a movie, it may be, this and that. But yeah, I do have to schedule out the time that I actually use for myself too.
Yeah, it's so tricky.
Because I feel like it's easy to get like worn out. So to avoid that, I make sure I like block out my schedule where I'm like, okay, at this moment, I won't engage with anything else. I'll just do what I feel in the moment.
Yeah, it's just yours.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's been really great hearing about the variety of what you're working on.
Thank you.
One thing I did, maybe this is just sort of a selfish question.
Okay.
So you're online teaching at your school right now with case management. Is that having sort of Zoom meetings with parents and kids or other teachers or?
Yes, so it's a combination. It's paperwork behind the scenes and then it's, checking in. So I'm kind of like a liaison between my students, teachers and their parents.
Right.
And then I'm also a teacher myself. So I have like reading students that I work with. So it is balancing, the paperwork and like the required Zoom meetings. And then I can set up office hours for my students. So yeah, it's a mixture.
Yeah. And you said you're at the high school level now?
Yeah.
And does it ever feel like draining or I don't know what the right word is, like tiring to be sort of working with so many students and handling so many different needs?
Yeah, it gets tough. It's stressful because like already as a teacher, you're like, committed to your students and your job and you like, you want so much for them. And like, you don't just turn your brain off when the workday is over. You're thinking about, getting something else ready for them. And so as a case manager, it takes it to a whole nother level because it's like I really know the ins and outs of this student's life and, their families. And, I know that they have, different abilities. So now I'm concerned with the way that they're receiving work and how are they handling it. And then just thinking about their social emotional well-being, because a lot of my students, like that's where they struggle with social emotional. And now with this being such a crazy uncertain time, I'm like, how are they feeling?
Yeah.
Are they able to handle this? How are they dealing with the stressors? And it's tough when you can't reach them because it's not like they're required to sit in a class now. It's like, are they going to respond to emails? Are they going to follow up with phone calls? So it's really tough. It's definitely an emotional job and I get really, really invested. And so it can be tough. I have to give myself breaks to kind of try to turn it off, even though it's just not possible. But yeah, it's like being a teacher plus extra.
Yeah.
Like you care even more.
Yeah. It's like almost being a social worker on top of being a teacher.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Definitely it's challenging, but I do love my students.
Yeah, it is. It must be extra difficult right now, just knowing the different situations they might be in and,
right.
what are their parents essential workers? Are their parents laid off?
Right.
What's going on there?
So true.
How's everybody doing health-wise? All of those big, big uncertainties.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping that soon, things open up and like even
Mm-hmm.
though the school year is pretty much done, like we can't see each other in person, which is so sad because there's students I've been working with, for years and they were going to graduate and,
Mm.
it's going to be hard to end the school year and not like say something to them in person. But
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that everybody's okay.
Yeah. And just you have to keep sending that message out to them and like, hope you're doing okay. I love you. I care about you.
Yeah.
Make some art.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been, I mean, I have my kid is only 4, but it's been hard seeing just the like change in her life too. And then thinking about my students and how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And
are you doing Zoom meetings with them?
I'm not. I'm pretty much like producing content and sending it to the classroom teachers.
Okay.
So I'm doing like videos and lessons with Google Slides.
Okay.
Visuals, some audio that I record, and then also videos of my like demos.
Nice.
And just sending that off to the classroom teachers, and then they're sending it to the kids and the parents.
Okay.
So I'm kind of one step removed, which is a little strange to teach that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Man, it's so different.
Yeah. And I mean, even here, like I work for a nonprofit that sends artists into school. So that's part of it, that I'm not like a certified teacher, but even within the organization, every school is really different how they've sort of set things up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's just so unprecedented for everybody that I think everybody's just trying to figure out what works.
Exactly. Because, even here, like, my school is doing something different than, maybe the next town over, and different grade levels are doing different things. So, people are trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's intense.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed that it doesn't last too much longer.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else that you would want to share about how you've pieced it all together and the different aspects of what you do?
I would tell anybody who's listening, especially teaching artists or artists in general, to like just think about what it is that you want. I remember hearing this motivational speaker say, "Who are you and what do you want?" And that has been like really driving me lately. And so when I first started teaching art, I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do with it. Like I was just like, okay, I'll be a classroom art teacher. But originally I did think about like, okay, maybe community settings. I remember I really had a desire to do that, but somebody told me like, oh, you don't want to do community, you won't get paid much. And like, I kind of just left it alone and like, okay, I'll just teach in schools. But then I just learned that I love community and I love bringing the arts to different places and different people who may not have a chance to have it in school. And like, I wish that I kind of stuck with that back then and just really started with it early and got that experience. So now it's making me see like, okay, think about who I am and what do I want, where I want to take my art. And, originally I thought like, oh, I'll have my work in galleries. And then I was like, no, I'm not good enough for that. Or no, it's too much involved with that. And now I'm like, I do not care at all about galleries and exhibitions. And like, I submitted to so many different art shows thinking that's what I was supposed to do. But then it was like, what do I really want to do? And, now I'm like, I want to make art because it helps me calm down. It helps me de-stress. I like flowers and landscapes because they're pretty and they're calming. And, I like to support other people to produce art. And if people want to, improve their art, I want to help them. And so now I know, like, I want to help people with my art or with my skills and experience. And I would just tell everyone to just think about where you are, think about who you want to be and how you want to present yourself with your artwork and with your teaching practices.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It requires some intense introspection.
Yeah. It's so important.
Yeah. That's one of those things I feel like you need to take your once a week, like me time and just kind of maybe take a bath and think about it. Yep. Relax and think about it.
And
what is it that I want?
Yep.
Yeah. Journal it.
I write everything. Exactly. I have so many journals filled with just notes of ideas I've had over the years. And then I'll look back at it now. I'm like, oh my goodness, I thought about this 10 years ago. I should have done it then, but now I'm doing it now.
Well, at least you're coming back to it.
Yeah, that's always good.
I feel like those ideas, the ideas that are recurring, that like keep
Hmm.
coming up, those are the ones you really have to follow through on.
Yes, it's a sign. It comes back for a reason.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. A few little kind of fun, like starting to wrap up questions.
Okay.
What are you curious about right now?
Curious about. Okay, it's random.
That's okay.
So I think of curious of like wanting to do more of, but like I just always had a love for dance and like I want to dance
Mm,
and like so I'm curious about finding like especially now with like Zoom and stuff to see if there's dance group classes or something on Zoom or like
yeah.
because I was actually looking up stuff before the quarantine of like a local fun dance class. It was all about like women empowerment and everything like that. So
Uh,
that's what I'm curious about, like a fun social dance group.
awesome. Yeah, you'll have to find something.
Yeah, I need to do some research.
Yeah, my daughter loves dance
Oh,
and she's surprisingly good at
okay.
it. Like my husband and I are both just totally uncoordinated. So
Wow.
seeing her move, we're just like, how did you, what?
Oh,
So we've been trying to do, we should also, now you're
yeah.
inspiring me to find an actual class because we've just
Hmm.
been doing like videos and stuff.
Yes, you probably love that.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and she was going to a local dance place
Okay.
for kids before, but
Oh,
yeah,
what kind of dance does she like?
I mean, she's only 4, so she doesn't really know.
Okay.
She had been in a class that was ballet, but not super
Ooh.
strict
Okay.
ballet,
Good.
sort of like ballet that was taught at a yoga studio. So it wasn't like they didn't have to wear tutus and follow all the strict
Okay.
forms yet.
That's cool. Yeah, more loose.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. The kind that involves leaping and twirling. She likes that.
Okay. That's so cute.
Yeah, but she has like rhythm when you put on music that's, you know,
Wow.
that's not just this old classical
Yeah.
music. She moves the way that I cannot.
Man, that's a gift.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And what is the best compliment you've received? What's something you're really good at?
Best compliment. I love it when people tell me that they admire like my patience and like kindness.
Mm.
And like, I don't know, because it's something that I really, really work hard at making people feel like, especially in like classes, because somebody in one of my classes I just taught recently emailed me and said that. And she was just like, you were just so patient and so kind and giving. And like, I feel like everybody should be, but especially as a teacher, it's something I'm always striving for because you just never know what kind of day people are having. And like,
Mm.
I want not only like art to be something to make people happy, but like I want people to be happy when they interact with me. So I think that's one compliment that like really stands out because, I feel like everybody should be, kind and patient, but it just means a lot when people notice it because I really do work hard at it.
Well, it's not always an easy thing.
Yeah.
And that ability to like put yourself in someone else's shoes and think before you just sort of gut
Yeah.
react to something, think, well, maybe they're not having that good of a
Hmm.
day.
Yep. So I always try to think like that.
Yeah, that's not easy.
No.
What is something that you are not very good at doing?
Something I'm not good at doing, I would say singing. My fiance always makes fun of my
Mm.
singing.
Oh,
It's funny too because when I was young, I tried to start a singing group with my friends when I was like 9, and I wanted to be the lead, but of course I couldn't sing. But yeah, it just didn't work out. So that's one thing. I'm like, how come I know
oh,
so many people who can sing, but I cannot?
oh.
Yep.
Yeah. I feel you on that one too. Anything in the performing arts really
Yeah.
is just not my wheelhouse.
Well,
One more really fun little question. What is your favorite food?
favorite food. Oh, that's hard.
I know there's so many good ones.
Man. Yeah. All my life it used to be corn dogs. I don't know why.
Ah, I know. I
Yeah.
love them too. I'll admit it.
It's something about, I think it might still be because it's like I don't eat them as often. And when I do, it's like a nice treat. Like, oh, it's a corn dog. Like, I love corn dogs.
Yeah. Do you have them with
Nope.
anything, or
I
it's
like the
just
plain ones.
yep,
Yeah, with
straight
like a
up?
little bit of sweetness to
Yeah.
it. That's the kind I like.
Hmm. And is there anybody that you would want to thank or give a shout out to?
Number one would be God. And then my parents, I would say, because like as a teacher, I know that you see all the time parents have like certain expectations for their kids. And, parents can sometimes direct kids to where they want them to go, especially like career wise.
Hmm.
And I definitely thank them for always being open to, whatever it was I thought that I wanted to do or wanted to be. And they were just like so supportive. And I guess because they're also like creative people. So yeah, I think if it wasn't for them pushing me to like think for myself and figure out who I want to be and do what I want to do, I may not, be doing the things I'm doing. So my parents, family, and also my fiance for keeping me going every single day, even though my days can be so
Uh-huh.
stressful. And some days I might want to just give up, but like he's always looking at me like, look, now you don't just give up. You're not a quitter. You're gonna be amazing at whatever you do. Just keep going.
Uh,
So yeah, I love that motivation I get.
yeah, that's amazing to have such a good like support system around you.
Yes, it's like essential for everything in life.
Mm-hmm. And last one, where can our listeners connect with you online?
You can find me at lizbrentart.com. I'm also on Instagram at Liz Brent Art, on Facebook. Again, Patreon. My name is Liz Brent. And I even have a YouTube. I haven't been so active on YouTube, but my YouTube name is just Brent Art. But yeah, I would love to connect with new people. Just reach out and find me. And,
Nice.
let's talk about some art or make some art together.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll link to all of that as well.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Rebecca, too, for actually reaching out and finding me all the way from California. And I'm all the way in Chicago. And I'm just so excited for this to be my first podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been really great hearing about all of the things that you have going on.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Liz. It was so evident in talking with her that she cares deeply for all her students, whether the kids she's working with in school or adults she's teaching through her membership program. I'm also so impressed with her business sense, something I'm really struggling with, and how she continues to find new ways of reaching people with her art and teaching practices. Liz keeps love, patience, and kindness at the heart of what she does. She's cultivating peace through painting. Thank you so much for listening. As always, you can reach me at Teaching Artist Podcast on Instagram or teachingartistpodcast@gmail.com. Who do you want to hear from? Please share your recommendations of teaching artists. And if you loved this episode, please subscribe, leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow me. It really makes a big difference. Thank you.